Please welcome onto the show a very special guest, play-by-play man for the Pittsburgh Steelers and Pitt Panthers, and the voice of a city, Mr. Bill Hillgrove. Bill, how you doing today?
You read it just like I wrote it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, everything's great. We get the extended season. I was hoping we didn't have to, stop here in Dayton, but I go back to the words of assistant coach Milan Brown. We had him on after that disappointing Miami loss a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "We'll play anywhere in the ball." And so here we are to face Mississippi State.
Yeah, we would have loved to go a little bit further in the ACC tournament, would have loved to get a little bit of a higher seed, but it just feels good to be dancing again.
Oh, no question about it. And we ran into a Duke team that could beat the Lakers that night. And we didn't play well, that's a given, but they played out of their minds. I knew we were in trouble when Lively hit a three. He was 1 for 12 in threes going into that game. And so, we couldn't deal with their length.
This is a resilient Pitt team, but pretty soon you kind of knew wasn't our day, and it happened.
No, it wasn't. And and Duke won the tournament, but I guess the committee didn't think that was enough. So Pitt goes to Dayton, and the winner of this game goes to. We go to Greensboro. I don't know where Mississippi State goes, and I guess they go to Greensboro too. I haven't looked at the bracket that closely, but I'm welcoming a trip back to Greensboro, especially we would face Iowa State, and then if you win that game, you run up against Sean Miller and Xavier, which is a very, very good basketball team. But there's no bad teams left. I feel bad for the teams that were snubbed, especially in our league. Carolina, Clemson. But I didn't like the fact that Carolina turned down the NIT. They have their reasons, but since the NCAA runs the NIT, I think you're playing with fire when you do stuff like that. But I'm not an administrator in Chapel Hill. I'm just a little old broadcaster, just moving right along. Thank you.
Yeah, You would think the Tar Heels would have learned their lesson about ticking off the NCAA, what with all those academic issues they ran into a few years ago.
Yeah, but there's a big change in the NCAA now. We have a politician taking over, largely because of this NIL Pandora's box that was open.
Charlie Baker, correct?
Yeah, and it's probably a good thing in that regard. I had a great conversation with Wes Durham, the fine play-by-play announcer for the ACC, and he said, "This is not my idea." He said, "I talked to a tax attorney, and he thinks the way out for everybody is to turn the NIL over to the conferences." And his reasoning is that, well, in our conference, we have 5 or 6 private schools. Others are state-related. Others are state-run. And so you have different tax structure there. You also have different rules in different states where different teams come from. So I think if the conferences handle it, and they are 501c3s, I think that's a way out. So it's going to be interesting to see how they put the guardrails in, because Lord knows they should have been in by now, but unfortunately the Pandora's box is open.
I'm all for letting the NCAA handle as little as possible.
Yeah, and you know what? They run the risk of running out of at least control over the Power Fives. At some point, the Power Fives may just say, "Hey, we'll run it ourselves." But I hope not to see that day. But hey, it's all about money, and football drives the bus, and it's a reality. You have to deal with it. That's all. And the same with the transfer portal. I don't like it, but you have to deal with it. Thank God Pitt had the availability of people like Jamarius Burton and, Blake Hinson. We wouldn't be where we are right now without those two. That's for sure.
No, absolutely not.
And Greg Elliott. Greg has given us a dimension we haven't had. And I knew when we moved into the ACC that 3-point shooters would be at a premium. It's not like Big East basketball where everything's in the paint. This league is a perimeter league, has been, and we've finally caught up. And you see the results. I'm happy for Jeff. He deserved Coach of the Year. This team came out of nowhere and kind of had it stick in their craw that they were picked 14th in the preseason poll in the league. And now in their craw is the fact that they had to come to Dayton to earn the right to be one of 64. But the committee has tough choices. But I think Jeff Capel's right. There's a bias against this league that shouldn't be in place. And the bias is because Duke had a down year. I'm not sure that it's a down year now. But early on, they were not the same Duke Blue Devils. And neither was Carolina, who was picked number 1 in the nation. And because of those two Tobacco Road stalwarts, the league was perceived as down, and I didn't think so, and I agree with Jeff. But it's, a matter of opinion.
Did you ever think that you would see an occasion in which a 20-plus win Duke team would win the ACC and only be given a 5 seed?
No. That's the bias I'm talking about.
Exactly.
And it's a bias toward the Big Ten, bias toward the Big 12. They're fine leagues, don't get me wrong. And so is the SEC. But to put the ACC where they are in their eyes, I think is wrong. And, hey, we have a chance to prove it. We did last year. We had 2 in the Final Four. So let's see if we can repeat that.
Well, we've already proved a lot of the doubters wrong. You said this team was picked 14th in the preseason poll. I know as fans, it was awesome to care about basketball in January and February, and now even March. We didn't think we'd even be here at the beginning of the season. How much more fun has it been for you?
Well, it's been so much fun. And, my brother John, who does our engineering, was putting in some of the wiring prior to the season. And Gilbert Brown came through the tunnel, and he said to Gilbert, what do you think? And Gilbert said, you're going to have a lot of fun with this group. And that was before the season started. And we have had a lot of fun. They brought the Magic back to the Peterson Event Center. And that was in full blossom when Syracuse was in a couple of weeks ago. It was, magical. It should continue to be magical. And I give a lot of credit to the Oakland Zoo. Those kids have really stuck by these kids, but they're easy to stick by. Today we had a little bit of a delay coming down to Dayton. So we're gathered in this room at the private aviation center at the airport. And I noticed how, these players all interacted. They were having fun. They were talking to each other. They weren't sitting there playing with their phones and, listening to their earbuds. They were enjoying each other. And I think it's translated on the court that they play for each other. And I think that's one of the reasons for this great success.
You've definitely had issues in the past with, teams that don't seem to gel the way that these guys have. So it's been really rewarding to see a team that clearly really likes each other and really wants to play for each other. And that's kind of been a recurring theme of Pitt sports broadcasters and journalists we've had on the show, talking about what a great group of kids these are and how much they really enjoy each other.
Yes. And I think it starts with the leadership of Jamarius Burton. He's the guy that communicates. They communicate well. And I hear Jeff Capel preaching it all the time about communicating on defense. That's the secret. Play as one, stay together. And by and large, this team has done it. Okay, we've had a couple of games where we didn't play, like Pitt teams had shown earlier this year. But by and large, even if Pitt loses to Mississippi State, which I don't think is going to happen, by the way, but then don't ask me, I'm not a good picker. But I just have a sense, first of all, this team, Mississippi State, is last in Division I in 3-point field goal percentage. We should be able to take advantage of that. Now, on the other side of the coin, they're about as old as we are. And I think both teams are older than the Oklahoma City NBA team. The starting 5 is actually older. But that, I give Jeff Capel a lot of credit. He sees that the folly of depending on even talented freshmen. And we've seen Duke this year. There are no more talented freshmen in the country than they have. And it took them a month and a half to figure it out. And boy, they figured it out. And they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, even though they're a 5 seed.
We mentioned how fun of a team this is to follow. This can go any sport, any team you've called. Do you have a favorite team that you've ever called games for? Could be an era, a season, a stretch.
Oh, the Cinderella Tony Dorsett years. That will probably never happen again in college football. And to be part of that was very, very special. That team, even though it might not have been Pitt's most talented team, I think the 80 team was a lot more talented, and I think the NFL proved that by plucking 14 of those kids plus 3 free agents.
Wow.
But, Tony was a once-in-a-lifetime athlete, and his greatness, it's hard to put into words, but his greatness was largely because he worked hard. And I have never seen a great athlete. I've seen talented athletes, but I've never seen a great one that didn't work hard. And Tony worked. He had the lunch pail. He learned from his dad, Wes, who worked in the mill. You got to put your time in and you got to work hard. And that team, that just, for them to go from 1-10 to the national championship in 4 years, that'll never happen again. Never, ever, ever. And we probably won't see a Tony again either. I think he's the finest college back I ever saw. Finest pro back might be Jim Brown. But Tony still proved himself at the next level and stood on the steps of Canton. That's not too shabby for a 155-pound kid out of Hopewell.
Not too shabby at all. Yeah, we really regret that we were not alive for the most recent Pitt National Championship. Could you just tell us what it felt like? Because I don't want to say we're never gonna see a Pitt National Championship, but the way college football is going is not in our favor. So we just want to. Can you put us in that moment in 1976 as if we're there? Yeah,
we were playing Army at Pitt Stadium, and Michigan was number 1, and we were number 2. And the loudspeaker at Pitt Stadium said the final score, I think Purdue beat Michigan that day. And I remember saying on the air, Michigan has been defeated. The Panthers are now number 1. And as I said those words, I said, almost choked. I mean, number 1 in the nation. But that team just took care of business. They did what they had to do. And I'll never forget, down in New Orleans, the Georgia people pretty much controlled the streets and the lobby of our Marriott hotel to the point where the players had to take the service elevator because all the dog fans chanting dog meat, and all that stuff. And, we put up with it for the whole week. Fine. It's SEC country. It's, we understand. We're the hated visitors. Well, I couldn't do the game because of contractual arrangements. The locals weren't allowed to do it. ABC had it tied up. So I was on the sideline. And in the fourth quarter, when it was pretty evident that Pitt was the far superior team, our sideline is yelling across the field, "How does that dog meat taste right now?" And I'll never forget that as long as I live, because, those fans deserved that comment. But, it was magical. And I don't think there's a more magical moment. Yeah, there have been some great ones. In basketball, Levance Fields hitting that 3 against Duke at the Garden.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Harris making big buckets. Charles Smith making big buckets. Curtis Aiken making big buckets. I mean, gosh, there have been so many good moments. But I think, perhaps the most treasured one was the first time we won the Big East tournament. And we gathered at Rosie O'Grady's, which was because of Dick Rode and myself. We got the Pitt fans to gather there. It wasn't far from the hotel, which was the New York Hilton. And We left there. It was after daybreak. We celebrated all night long. And walking into the sun toward the Hilton Hotel, Dick and I just saying, wow, what a moment, what a moment in your lifetime. Because we suffered. Pitt fans suffered through the Big East. The joke was 3 Big East tickets, 2 shows, and a basketball ticket, but that was a special moment. And I tell you what, and his coaching persona is nothing like the real man, Jim Calhoun. He was doing an interview with a New Haven station, and obviously, they're crying in their tears. They lost by 18 points. And Dick and I got our coats off the rack at the checkpoint, and we're walking out, and we see Jim talking to this New Haven station. He stopped the interview and said, "Dick, Bill, congratulations." And to me, that gave me a whole new perspective on Jim Calhoun. But, that was a magical moment. And part of that was the fact that, we never stayed very long at the Big East tournament, as you well know. But we did under Ben Howland. I think we beat Notre Dame, Louisville, and Marquette on the way to the championship game with Boston College, which they were a superior team, and we were tired, and they beat us. But the neat thing about that was Dick and I had only packed 3 dress shirts. So to play in the championship game, we wore coats and ties in those days. We had to go to Macy's and buy dress shirts for that 4th day. And we learned our lesson. But, those were great moments. I wouldn't trade them for anything. I've been fortunate to call these games for 54 years. I started when I was 7. I thought I'd get a laugh from you guys.
I couldn't tell if you were serious or not because
No. Ray Goss has me by a year. He's done Duquesne for 55 years. Jeez. So I'm trying to catch him. But, it's been wonderful. And there have been ups and downs with the basketball. The downs were 1 and out in the Big East. We don't have to do the Villanova thing, do we, in 2008? No, we don't have to go there.
No, not at all.
Or Gary McGee not getting out on Kemba Walker. We don't have to go there, do we?
It'd be preferred if we didn't.
There have been great moments. We won at Washington. And again, Levance Fields had the winning bucket, and the Pac-10 officials had to go to the monitor to see if indeed he had let it go in time. And we knew that. And he sat right next to us. We were still on the air. And Levance kind of winked at us like, it was good. Don't worry about it. Great moments, great people. Clyde Vaughn, Tom Richards, Keith Starr. My favorite team was my first team. It was Mike Paul and Kent Scott, Paul O'Gorick. Paul's gone now. Jerry Patcher, he's gone now. It kind of makes you feel old when guys you've described as young athletes go before you, but that's life, and we don't know what the game plan is, so we just go along with it.
Well, it's bound to happen when you start your broadcast career at 7 years old. Some of those guys are a little bit older.
I was a child prodigy, and I've been a child ever since. And believe me, when people say, "Well, what do you think about the political?" I say, "Hey, give me my toys and let me alone. Let me play in my sandbox. I don't want to hear about any politics. I don't have to deal with the real world." And that's been a blessing. It really has been.
That's the beauty of sports.
It is. Will Rogers, he always read the sports section first, because that other section is nothing but gloom and doom and showing the ugly part of humanity. And I think sports shows you the best part, with a few exceptions.
I completely agree. There's a reason we get so many uplifting stories out of sports, whether it's the South African rugby team, winning the World Cup in '95, or the Miracle on Ice, or
the Jamaican bobsled team.
The Jamaican bobsled team, exactly.
Sure.
We don't seem to get, all of those uniting moments the same way outside of the arena of sport. So it's really cool that we have this, that we
Yeah.
have our Panthers and our Steelers. Hey, Panther Nation. Have you ever crashed your spin scooter going down Cardiac Hill? Or wiped out on an icy sidewalk in South Oakland? Have you ever been hit by a bus crossing Forbes Avenue? Well, you may not have to pay that hospital bill on your own. If you're hurt in an accident, pick up the phone and call Guido at Guerrera Law. Guido Guerrera is a University of Pittsburgh Law School grad, Pitt football superfan, and experienced personal injury attorney who's licensed in Pennsylvania and Ohio. And it is 100% free to call him for consultation on your personal injury case. So the next time you get rear-ended in Oakland rush hour traffic, or if you fall down the stairs at Peters, call Guido. All joking aside, Oakland and the world can be a very dangerous place. If you need legal help, talk to Guido. He'll treat you like a fellow Pitt fan and never like a number. 412-229-7757 is the number to call. That's 412-229-7757 to call Guido. You can also contact Guerrera Law at guerreralaw.com. That's Gurrera. Call Guido today. So, as we said, you've been doing this for quite a few years, and you were joking when you said you started when you were 7, but at what point in your life did you realize I have a very cool sounding voice and I should talk for a living?
I was 13 years of age. My dad was an electrician. My aunt was a sister of charity, and she had a fellow nun in that order who had the Pittsburgh Diocesan Radio TV School. And she said I should show up there. So I show up there. It was run by Sister Rosalie, and I expected them to teach me how to fix radios and TVs. And she handed me a script, and I read it. And she said, perfect, just what I'm looking for.
A natural.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm looking for a 13-year-old brat. I said, well, I'm a natural. I don't need a script. And I played this brat teenager for this radio show morning, noon, and night about a Catholic family. And I was the brat teenager. And at the age of 13, I discovered that I had an ability on this side of the microphone. And combine that with my passion for sports, and I've been very, very lucky. Very, very blessed.
Yeah, you've had my 2 dream jobs. You were a radio DJ in 1968, and you're a Pitt play-by-play guy now. So you've done, I think, some of the most enjoyable sounding work I could ever imagine. That's why we started a podcast, because who doesn't want to talk about sports and occasionally get money for it?
And who doesn't want to have their opinion heard?
All you need is a microphone.
Yeah, and that's yeah. I love that. I do. And people say, well, Billy, you've had chances to go out of the market and go somewhere. I've never entertained those. I'm talking about teams I grew up rooting for. I wouldn't care to do a Chicago Cubs Dodgers game. That would do nothing for me. So the games I do, okay, I'm a homer. I have a vested interest, but 90% of the people listening to me are homers as well. So it doesn't offend them.
Yeah, we love it. I think one of our favorite.
The point I'm getting to is there's no such thing as neutrality. You take any game, and 50% of the people are for one team and 50% are for the other. Some are fans and some are bettors, but they're still not in the middle. But the guys that have to be in the middle, they have a tough job. And I hear them, they kind of waffle. You say a good thing about the Bengals, and God, you got to say a good thing about the Browns. And, they go back, and I don't envy that. I don't. Just give me my toys and let me alone.
We notice this as Pitt fans. I mean, we love it. We hear all the calls that live on forever. We hear your voice. One thing that sticks out to us is during that ACC championship run for football, they actually put a camera up in the booth, so we'd
Oh yeah.
see
Well,
your
the
and
Steelers
Bostic's
do that now
reactions.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That, and you know what? That's a good idea, and I hope they made some money off it. I don't know if they charged for the hits or not, but it got a lot of hits. And
Well, I've watched it about 100 times myself, just from the ACC
well,
championship game. So I don't know if you're seeing
the
that in
hair
your
on my back
paycheck.
stood up when that stadium sang "Sweet Caroline" at the end of the
Yeah.
third quarter, and the Wake Forest people were sitting on their hands. I give Pat Narduzzi a lot of credit. His team made the adjustments, and we took the RPO away from what they were trying to do, and that gave us, the upper hand, and we showed it. That was one of the great moments.
Is there a favorite call that you've made in your career that you think
Yes.
about? I know there's
Yes.
one. I have a bobblehead up there of you from the Pitt game with
Yes,
the famous Tony
that's the one.
Dorsett call. Yeah.
That's the Pitt call, and of course the Steeler call would be Super Bowl 43 when Ben brought them down the field, and Santonio should have caught that one in the left side of the end zone, and Ben went right back to him. That to me, and believe me, there was another call in that game that was pretty important too, and that was James Harrison's return. I had him down twice during that 100-yard return. But no, that was magical. Those were two magical moments, no question.
You've been the Steelers play-by-play guy since 1994, correct?
Yes, correct.
So you've been doing Pitt longer.
Started with basketball in '69, and in 1970 they made me Ed Conway's color man. And when Ed passed in '74, then they said, "Well, you do the play-by-play." And it's been a great run, believe me.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I remember when I first put on my sports hat when Pitt turned me loose in 1969. I said, "Well, if I do this for the next 20 years, that will make my career." Little did I know it would go to 54, and little did I know at the time that the Steelers would come calling. So to be able to do both those great entities in my hometown and my home market, it doesn't happen to too many people. I've been very, very lucky.
Is it true that Dan Rooney hand-selected you to replace the legendary Jack
Well,
Fleming?
if you need the story, here it is.
Please.
I get a call from our sales manager who said, "Mr. Rooney keeps asking for your tape." This is after Jack Fleming retired. And I said, "I didn't submit a tape." He said he has one, and he's using it to measure the other, applicants. And the more he hears your tape, the more he likes it. And I said, "Uh-oh, I'm about to become a candidate for a job I never sought." Because I knew Jack Fleming and I respected him. He was a great, great play-by-play man, and I never thought to submit a tape when he retired. But a couple of weeks after that, I get a call from a Steelers brass guy. I said, "We had a meeting last night. Things are looking good for you." And then we had a meeting with the Rooneys, and they said to Jim Carter, our vice president and radio manager, "Okay, you can announce it." And I go, "My gosh, I'm the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers." And then I get back to the station, and the TV station manager called me and says, "Hillgrove, I got some good news and some bad news." I said, "What's the good news?" He said, "You're the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers." I said, "What's the bad news?" He said, "You're taking one hell of a pay cut because I'm going from TV to radio." And I didn't care. It made me a full-time play-by-play person. And I guess since I was 13, that's what I wanted to do, and I got to do it.
And you got to do it with the undeniable, incredible Myron Cope. Was it difficult when you started out with Myron to kind of get on the same page, because he was a really eccentric guy, and
it was seamless for one major reason. In 1983, Johnny Sauer, who was the Pitt color man, suddenly developed some heart problems, and 3 weeks before the season had to back off. And the boss called Cope in and said, "We want you to double up, do Hillgrove on Saturdays and the Steelers on Sundays." And he said, "I got a full enough plate." They said, "Your contract's coming up." He says, "I'm all ears." So he agreed to do it. And part of the story that it's so entertaining is the fact that we played Maryland, I think, in late September down there at College Park. And Cope said, I'll take this job under one provision, that I get to my favorite cousin's wedding on September 23rd at the prestigious Rolling Rock Club in Ligonier. So they hired a plane, a single engine plane, to take him from College Park to Latrobe Airport. And they take off, he and the pilot, and it's a beautiful day, and they get up over the mountains, and the pilot radios for permission to land at Latrobe, and the tower said, are you out of your mind? We got an air show going on here. We got biplanes and bombers and daredevils, and there's no way. So he turned to Cope and he said, they have an air show going on. We can't land. He said, tell them you have a VIP on board. We have a VIP on board. What's your name again? Tell them it's Myron Cope. He said, Myron Cope. There's like 8 seconds of silence, and the tower says, I need 4 for the Cleveland game.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, the bombers and the daredevils and the biplanes stopped, and Cope landed and made his favorite cousin's wedding. That was the power of Cope.
I'd say so.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was great. Working with Johnny Sauer, he taught me more about football than anybody could. Working with Bill Fralick and Billy Osborne and Mark May, and now with Pat Bostic. I mean, it's been an incredible run, and I enjoy it. But to get back to your original question, the transition to Cope was seamless. And don't forget, he and I had worked together at TAE Radio. Me as a disc jockey, he is the morning guy, and so we had a rapport going back that far. So that was easy. And you know what? It's like Abbott and Costello. You have to play the straight man, with the funny guy. I mean, those things never change. And I knew my role, and I relished it because I think if you analyze it, any comic duo, even though the straight man is straight, his sense of humor is just as good as the funny man. But he's got to play that role, and I enjoyed playing it. I did.
Yeah, I mean, Myron Cope was such a figure. I can only imagine what it was like to get to go into work with him every day. Did you ever, when you guys just started working together, did even you have a little bit of trouble understanding what he was saying? Because I remember being a little kid in my car seat asking my parents what the funny man on the radio was saying, and they would try to explain it to me, and I was very confused. Was it the same process for you?
No, it was when I never had any. I kind of knew where he might come from, and he wouldn't pass up too many opportunities to entertain. And you kind of get a sense that this is where he's going to take it, and you go right with it. And the guy was a genius, no question. One of the few I've been around, by the way.
Yeah, one of the greatest sports writers of all time.
No question. Look at his books. Broken Cigars. I recommend that to anybody. And Yoy and Double Yoy, his last work was pretty darn good as well. I was his roommate on several occasions, and he was writing something, and he'd labor over the right word. And I said, Myron, it's one word, can't you just put it in there and move on? He goes, Billy, the difference between a good word and a bad word is like the difference between the word light and the word lightning. And that kind of brought it home to me. He worked hard to get the specific word that his point was, the point he was trying to get across. The guy was very special, very, very special.
Incredible. Well, hey, it takes one to know one. You yourself have carved out quite a legacy. So I got to ask, after 40 or 50 years in the booth, what keeps it so exciting and fresh calling these Pittsburgh games?
Every game, whether it's football, basketball. I did baseball with Dick Rote for a couple of Big East tournaments, one in Coney Island and one in Bridgewater, New Jersey. Every game takes you for a ride. Every game is a magic carpet. and that's why I get a kick out of people, the talking heads on TV. Well, this is how this game is going to go. You have no idea how the game is going to go. And if the people on the field or on the court knew how it was going to go, you'd see a much different outcome. But, they go out and throw everything to the wind and come what may. And that's what I love about athletes. And to get to the point that you asked me about what keeps me going, yeah, the challenge of taking that magic carpet ride, but seeing young people compete at the highest level and give their all, that's pretty special. That's pretty darn special.
Attention anyone looking for a job or to further their education. Our sponsor, Haddad Accelerated Delivery, will now be offering a partial tuition reimbursement plan on top of its competitive pay, healthcare and 401k, employee assistance program, and referral payouts. So if you or someone you know is dependable, hardworking, and safety-minded, this is the job for you. Be a part of a company that will encourage self-ownership and award bonuses based on exceptional safety and delivery efforts. This is the ideal gig for individuals seeking full-time work or students interested in making some pretty good money during breaks. Text HADD to 464-646 to apply. That's HADD to 464-646. For a job that's the total package, get it? Because it's deliveries. Haddad Accelerated Delivery is the place for you. Mr. Hillgrove, you've got me ready to run through a brick wall. I'm ready for football season. I'm ready for March Madness. We've really appreciated hearing your perspective here. And there is actually another thing we wanted your perspective on, a little bit of career advice. So you, as well as a play-by-play guy, you are known for being a great MC at a lot of events and charitable galas, so to speak, that you've worked at. And we'll be MCing at least one golf outing this summer. Do you have any advice for keeping an event rolling and keeping everybody having a good time?
Yes. Remember that event is not about you. That event is about the people who are putting it on, the people who are getting awards. And so just remember that. Stay out of the way. And when I've emceed things, I've tried to do that. And also, if you have a story, make sure that the beginning and the end are very close together, because the brain can't absorb what the butt can't bear. And I think some people
write that down.
I'm serious. Some people who fail lose sight of that. And as a result, the audience, you lose them. And so that's the one thing I've always remembered. It's not about me. It's about this event. And I think that's good advice, not only for banquets, but for anything you do. It's not about you. It's about the content. It's not about me. It's about that football team on the field or that basketball team on the court. It's about them. I'm just a messenger. And I think if you keep that in mind, I think you can be successful.
That's some great advice. We had the opportunity to host or help host a golf outing last year. And we know that you're pretty involved with the upcoming Dick Groat Classic, correct?
Yes. 7th one coming up. We've decided this year that we're going to do just one shotgun. We had 2 in previous years. That makes the day very, very long. Makes for a lot of work for the committee. And I think the results don't match the work. So we decided this year to bump the price up a little bit to $600 for a foursome. But you get a celebrity in your group. And we've had very good luck with celebrities. Larry Harris said he's going to be here this year. Curtis Aiken will be there. We're going to lose a couple of football players because Jackie Sherrill's being honored at Texas A&M that same weekend. But we still will have a good representation of Pitt athletes, including Ken Maka, who had a pretty good major league run as both a manager and player. Mm-hmm. We have Walt Harris, who always comes back. He's very loyal to Dick and loves the golf course. And so I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be another great time. And, the money goes to Dick's Scholarship Fund at Pitt. And I think this year will include a local charity that's deserving. And when I say local, somewhere, in the Ligonier, Bolivar area up there. I just think that's great too. We keep the community in mind. But he's a wonderful host. It's a great golf course. Jerry Dulac said it's the finest public course in Pennsylvania. Jerry is a pretty good judge of golf courses, and it's just a magical time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's Saturday, May 13th at the Champion Lakes Golf Course. For those of you whose ears perked up at the opportunity to meet some of your hometown favorites and contribute to a great cause. So we look forward to it as well. And thank you for filling us all in. We're going to let you go here in a second, but there was something we wanted to ask of you. So
should I button my wallet?
Your wallet is safe. Your wallet is
all
very
right.
safe. So as Pitt fans that were born in the mid 90s, we've had our fair share of both Panther and Steelers heartbreak. I'm sure you are familiar with a couple of those occasions. So I was hoping, since we have the voice of these teams here, if we could do a little bit of alternate history. So we wrote you a couple calls for rewriting some tragic events of our childhood, and we were hoping you could give them a read so that we can, us and our listeners, can close our eyes and picture these moments, but had things gone Pittsburgh's way.
You're asking me to be a revisionist of history. Is that what you're asking me? No, I'm happy. You want me to do it right now?
By all means.
All right. This is regards to the recent Miami-Pitt basketball game where Pitt had a chance to get the share of the ACC regular season title. Blake Hinson nails the 35-footer. Down goes Miami. Your Pitt Panthers are the ACC regular season champions.
Wow. It's like it happened.
And now we're a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. We beat Duke. We went on a great run, and things are so much better in the world.
Absolutely. And it doesn't snow in February and March. All right, you ready for the next one?
Absolutely.
The Steelers have defeated the New England Patriots thanks to the last-second heroics of Jesse James. There was no doubt about it.
Perfect. There was no doubt about it. He broke the plane.
Call by those referees.
Yeah.
All right, back to basketball. Kemba Walker gets the switch to McGee, crosses over, pulls up, blocked.
Gary does it.
That might be the biggest lie I've ever told.
Poor Gary McGee. He needs
all right. Let's go to the Peach Bowl. Touchdown Panthers. Nick Patty dives for the pylon and scores completely unscathed. And the Peach Bowl is tied at 7-7.
Wow. We win that game by 30 if that was the way that things went down.
12-win season for the Panthers.
Historic.
I'll tell you what, send me more tough Jersey kids like Nick Patty.
Oh, he's the best. We've had him on the show. We
got a tough Jersey kid wearing number 8 for the Steelers. It looks like he's going to have a nice career. All right. Last and not least. And that's going to do it here for the Loyal Sun Show. The incredibly handsome and talented Dylan, David, and Squid are signing off. Until next time, Panther fans, H2P.
Incredible. That was my favorite one. That was my favorite
one.
Yeah, you wrote that one, didn't you?
Off your head.
Yeah.
What's that?
Did you write that one?
I read it like you wrote it.
Good enough.
We'll take what we can get.
Well, Bill, this has sincerely been an incredible honor from two, young Pittsburghers. Thank you so much for your time and everything you've done for Pittsburgh sports in our community. Hail to Pitt.
Yeah, this
Thank
is one
you
we
for the
had on our
kind
list.
words. I appreciate it. And let's do this again.
You said it, not us. We'll hold you to it.
Good luck in Dayton, Bill. Hopefully we have a long road ahead of us.
I'm packed for Greensboro, so got my fingers and my eyes crossed.
You brought enough suits this time?
I think I have enough to get by because I don't wear suits anymore. Pit gear. If the coaches wear gear, I'll wear gear, except for
Beautiful.
Curtis is always, GQ.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and hail to Pitt.
Okay. Thank you.